We all thought she was one of Emma's new neighbors, quiet, pale, a little awkward. But when morning came, the girl who joined our sleepover was nowhere in the house, and none of us had ever invited her. It happened the summer before high school. My friend Emma had just moved into this old 2-story house on the edge of town. You know the type? With slanted floors and wallpaper that peeled in long strips. Her parents called it historic. To us, it just felt creepy, the kind of place that stayed a little too quiet when the air conditioner clicked off. There were 4 of us that night, me, Emma, Chloe, and Jenna. Emma's parents were out, so we had the place to ourselves. We did the usual sleepover stuff, ordered pizza, watched terrible horror movies, and spent half the night trying to freak each other out. By midnight, the laughter had faded into sleepy whispers, punctuated by the soft tapping of rain against the windows. That's when we heard the knock. It wasn't loud, just a soft, polite tap at the front door. We all froze, looking at each other. No one was supposed to be coming over. Emma hesitated, then got up to check. I heard the faint creak of the old door opening. A minute later, she came back into the living room, and she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a girl, maybe our age, with long dark hair and skin so pale it almost looked gray in the dim light. She was wearing an oversized hoodie and faded pajama pants. She didn't smile or say anything, just stood there as if she was waiting to be told what to do. "This is Lily," Emma said, a bit flustered. "She lives nearby, I guess. She said she knows me from school." I glanced at Chloe and Jenna. None of us recognized her, but we didn't want to be rude, so we just made a space for her. At first, she barely spoke. She sat cross-legged on the floor, watching us paint our nails and play truth or dare. When she did talk, her voice was so soft you could barely hear it. There was something about her that wasn't threatening, exactly, but just off. Her movements were jerky, like she wasn't quite comfortable in her own body. During a game of truth or dare, Jenna asked her who she had a crush on. Lily paused for a long, quiet moment, then said, "He's not alive anymore." We all let out a nervous laugh, thinking it was some kind of joke. But she didn't smile. Around 2 a.m., we were all getting tired. The storm outside had picked up and thunder was rumbling close enough to shake the windows. We laid out our sleeping bags in a circle on the floor. The lights were off, with just the blue glow of the TV's screensaver pulsing across the room. That's when I noticed something really strange. Lily wasn't lying down. She was sitting up against the wall, her eyes wide open, just staring at us. Not moving, not blinking. I whispered, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't respond. She just kept staring, her head tilted slightly like she was studying us. A wave of cold rolled through me. Not from the AC, but something heavier, like the air itself was thickening. I tried to ignore it, telling myself to get some sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Sometime later, I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, the power was out. It was still dark, the storm quieter now. I turned my head toward the window and almost screamed. Someone was standing there. For a split second, I thought it was Lily, but as lightning flashed, I saw it clearly. It was a reflection. The glass was fogged up, and on the inside of it, a handprint was pressed against the pane. From our side. I sat up fast, heart pounding, and looked around. Emma was asleep. So were Jenna and Chloe, but Lily was gone. Her sleeping bag was completely empty. Trying not to wake anyone, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. "Lily," I whispered, scanning the dark corners of the room. Nothing. I crept into the hallway, the floor creaking under my feet. Every door was closed except one, the basement door. It was cracked open just a few inches, and there was a faint sound coming from below, like someone breathing. I froze. My brain was screaming at me to go back to wake everyone up, but before I could move, the breathing stopped. Then from the darkness below, a whisper floated up. "Go back to sleep." I slammed the door shut and ran back to the living room. I shook Emma awake, panicked, telling her Lily was gone. She just blinked at me, confused. "Who's Lily?" she asked. I stared at her, thinking she had to be joking. But when I looked at Chloe and Jenna, they both had the same blank expression. They didn't remember her at all. In the morning, I checked the spot where she'd been sitting. The blanket and pillow were bone dry, even though everything else near the windows was damp from the rain. When Emma's parents got home, I told them what happened. Her mom looked at me with a strange expression and asked, "You girls didn't go outside last night, did you?" Apparently, years ago, the house had belonged to a family whose daughter had drowned in the creek behind the property. Her name was Lily. Emma's family moved a few months later. I can't blame them. Sometimes, though, I still dream about that night. I'll see that same pale girl sitting in the dark, staring with that blank, curious expression. And every time there's a thunderstorm, I swear I can hear her voice in the rain outside my window. Soft, distant, almost kind. Can I come in? They say sound can capture what the eyes cannot see. But I'll never forget the voice we heard that night, whispering my best friend's name from a recorder that no one had touched. It all started when I was 13, at one of those classic middle school sleepovers. 5 of us crammed into my friend Emma's living room with sleeping bags, junk food, and way too much energy to actually sleep. Her parents were out for their anniversary, so the house was ours. We were being loud, doing dumb dares. You know how it is. That's when Emma brought out something none of us had ever seen before. It was this old, clunky voice recorder, the kind that used tiny cassette tapes. She'd found it in her attic. The batteries still worked, and the tape inside seemed blank. Someone, I think it was Kayla, joked that we should use it to talk to ghosts. We'd just been binging paranormal videos, so of course it felt like the perfect, stupid idea. We shut off all the lights, lit a single candle, and sat in a circle around the recorder. Emma hit the record button. "Is anyone here with us?" she asked, half laughing. For a moment there was just silence. The old house creaked, the way old houses do. We took turns asking silly questions into the dark. "What's your name? Are you friendly?" It was all a big joke, a way to scare ourselves for fun. About 10 minutes later, we decided to play it back. That's when the laughter died. The first few seconds were normal, our own voices, the crackle of the candle flame. Then the silence. But underneath it, something else. A faint static hiss, a few pops, and then a whisper. At first, we thought it was one of us, but the voice was wrong. It was deeper, distorted, like someone speaking from underwater. And then, clear as day, it said one word: Emma. We all froze. Emma hit stop, her hands shaking. "Okay, who did that?" she said, but her voice was trembling. None of us said a word, because none of us had done it. Kayla tried to laugh it off, saying it was probably just radio interference. But interference doesn't say your name. The mood in the room had completely shifted. The candle flickered wildly, and Emma's cat, who was usually super chill, started hissing at an empty corner of the room. We tried to get back to normal. We turned on the lights, blasted music, but the feeling of being watched never went away. By 2 a.m., everyone was finally starting to drift off. A storm had rolled in, and I remember the sound of rain against the windows. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, I was awake. A soft click, then a hiss. The recorder had turned itself on. I sat up thinking someone had rolled onto it, but everyone was fast asleep. Across the room, the little red light on the recorder was glowing. I could hear something playing quietly. It was our voices again, our faint laughter from earlier. But then came that whispering static, and the voice. Emma. This time it didn't stop. It repeated her name over and over, getting faster, louder, until it sounded like heavy, angry breathing. Then came a sound that still makes my skin crawl, like fingernails scraping right against the microphone, followed by a sharp thud. Emma screamed. She shot upright in her sleeping bag, clutching her arm. There, on her forearm, were 3 long, fresh scratches, already starting to bleed. We flipped on every light in the house, our hearts pounding out of our chests. The recorder was still on, the tape spinning, but now it was just silent static. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night. At one point, Emma went to throw the recorder in the trash, but when she opened it, the batteries were gone. The compartment was just empty. Her parents didn't believe us when they got home. They said we were tired, that our imaginations ran wild. Emma's dad took the recorder and said he'd get rid of it. 2 weeks later, Emma's family moved away. They said it was for her dad's job, but I always wondered. Months went by before I heard from her again. One night, out of nowhere, she sent me a text. "Do you still have that sleepover tape?" I told her no, her dad took it. She didn't reply for an hour. Then, another message came through. "It's not gone." Below it was a photo. It was dark and grainy, taken in what looked like her new bedroom. On her nightstand was that same old recorder, its red light glowing faintly, and below the image was a timestamp, 3:17 a.m. Even now, years later, sometimes I wake up around that time, and I swear I can still hear that whisper, soft, distant, saying her name. And sometimes it sounds like it's learning mine. We laughed every time her mom peeked in to check on us, until we realized the woman standing in the doorway all night wasn't alive anymore. It happened the summer after 8th grade. My best friend, Danielle, had just moved into a small house a few miles outside of town. It wasn't anything fancy. 2 stories, creaky floors, and that faint old wood smell that every old house seems to have. Her dad worked nights, so we had the place to ourselves most weekends. That Friday, Danielle invited 3 of us over for a sleepover. Me, Lauren, and Tasha. We brought movies, snacks, and a Ouija board that Lauren had found in her attic. You know, typical, we're so brave teenage stuff. It started out fun. We stayed up late, gossiping, eating way too much sugar, and daring each other to watch scary YouTube videos in the dark. By around midnight, the house was totally quiet except for our laughter and the occasional creak from the hallway. That's when we first noticed her. We were halfway through a movie when Danielle glanced toward the door and said, "Oh my God, my mom's spying on us." Sure enough, standing just outside the doorway was a woman, maybe in her 40s, with short brown hair and a soft, tired smile. She was watching us from the hall, her face half hidden in shadow. "Mom," Danielle groaned. "We're fine." The woman just smiled, nodded slightly, and walked away. We all laughed about it, joking that her mom was being protective or just plain nosy. It didn't seem weird at the time. About an hour later, the same thing happened. The movie had ended, and we were sprawled across sleeping bags on the floor when that soft creak of footsteps came down the hall again. The door was cracked open and we saw her mom's face peeking in. Same tired smile, same quiet look. This time she didn't move for a while, just stood there watching. It started to get uncomfortable. Danielle called out, "Mom, seriously, stop." No response. The figure turned her head slightly, like she was listening to something deeper in the house. Then she stepped back into the dark and disappeared. I remember feeling uneasy. Not scared yet, but like something about the moment just didn't sit right. Danielle brushed it off, saying her mom was probably just checking on us because her dad wasn't home. But when I asked where her mom was sleeping, she said, "The guest room upstairs. She's been tired lately." That was enough to make us drop it. We turned the lights off and tried to get some sleep. I woke up a couple of hours later to the sound of movement. The kind that's subtle but just wrong. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the stairs. I rolled over and saw the hallway light flickering, and there she was again. Danielle's mom stood just outside the doorway, her head tilted slightly, eyes reflecting the faint light. She didn't look angry, more hollow, like she wasn't really seeing us. Her mouth moved a little, but no sound came out. Then she stepped backward into the dark, and the light went out completely. I thought maybe I was dreaming. I squeezed my eyes shut, heart racing, and tried to ignore the sound of faint breathing from the hall. The next morning, nobody said anything at first. We were all exhausted, pretending we'd slept fine. It wasn't until breakfast that Lauren finally spoke up. "Hey," she said to Danielle, "your mom kind of scared us last night. She was checking on us like every hour." Danielle looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "Your mom," I said. "She was at the door all night." Danielle just stared at us. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "My mom's not here," she said slowly. We laughed, waiting for her to admit she was joking, but she didn't. Her eyes were wet now. "She died in February." The words hit like a punch. None of us knew what to say. Danielle stood up, trembling a little. I didn't tell you guys because I didn't want it to be weird. She got sick really fast. We moved here after. Lauren and I looked at each other, both pale as ghosts. Tasha whispered, "Then who was watching us?" Danielle didn't answer. She just got up and walked to the hallway. We followed her, part of us not wanting to believe what we'd seen. The hall looked normal in the daylight, except for one detail that made my stomach drop. The carpet near the door frame had 2 faint, damp footprints, bare feet. Smaller than a man's, but bigger than Danielle's. We didn't stay long after that. That night, when I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about her mom's face, the faint smile, the way she tilted her head like she was listening. A week later, Danielle called me in tears. She said she'd been hearing footsteps upstairs at night, even when her dad was home. Sometimes her bedroom door would creak open on its own, just an inch or two, like someone was checking in. She told me she tried sleeping with the door locked, but the next morning, it was always open again. The last time I talked to her, she said she'd seen her mom sitting at the foot of her bed, hands folded in her lap, watching her sleep. She didn't sound scared, just tired. "Maybe she just wants to make sure I'm okay," Danielle said quietly. That's what she used to do. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But there was something about the way that figure had stood in the doorway, still, silent, smiling just a little too long. That didn't feel like love. It felt like something pretending to remember what love was. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night and think I see movement in my doorway, I hear that same soft creak of old floorboards, and I wonder who's watching me now. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a chilling experience you'd like to share, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there.